The deafening crack of a rifle shot echoed across the dusty plains of New Mexico Territory. 1878. As Emma Montgomery ducked behind an overturned wagon, clutching her sister's newborn twins to her chest. Death had come for her family, but it wouldn't claim these innocent lives too, not while she still drew breath. Emma's auburn hair whipped across her face as she peered through the splintered wood, watching the retreating figures of the bandits who had attacked their wagon train. 3 days out from Lordsburg, and now she was alone with 2 infants who needed more than she knew how to give. The babies, barely 2 weeks old, began to whimper against her trembling body. "Hush now," she whispered, her voice breaking as tears streamed down her dirt-stained cheeks. "I promised your mama I'd get you to safety, and I will." The sound of approaching hoofbeats made Emma's heart stutter. She reached for the small derringer hidden in her skirts, prepared to defend her tiny charges with her last breath. When a lone rider appeared over the ridge, silhouetted against the setting sun, she steadied her hand. "Come any closer and I'll shoot," she called out, her voice stronger than she felt. The rider slowed his horse to a walk, hands raised slightly. "Madam, I mean no harm." Heard the shots from a mile off. His voice carried across the expanse between them, deep and measured. As he drew closer, Emma could make out the weathered features of a man perhaps 30 years of age, his face partially shadowed by a wide-brimmed hat. "Are you alone?" he asked, scanning the horizon for any sign of the bandits. "Yes," Emma answered, the weight of that truth crushing her anew. "They're all gone." The stranger dismounted with fluid grace, approaching slowly as if she were a spooked mare. "Name's Henry Hayes," he said, removing his hat to reveal sandy brown hair and eyes the color of the New Mexico sky. "I've got a ranch about 10 miles east of here." One of the babies let out a hungry wail, and Henry's gaze dropped to the bundles in Emma's arms. "Those yours?" he asked, surprise evident in his voice. "My sister's," Emma replied, her voice catching. She didn't make it. None of them did." Henry's expression softened as he knelt beside the remains of the wagon. "I'm mighty sorry for your loss, Miss Montgomery, Emma Montgomery." She shifted the babies in her arms, wincing as pain shot through her shoulder where she'd been grazed by a bullet. "You're hurt," Henry observed, reaching out before stopping himself. "May I?" Emma nodded reluctantly, allowing him to examine the wound while she cradled the infants. "It's not deep, but it needs tending," he said. "As do those little ones, I imagine. Lordsburg's still a good 2 days' ride from here, and that's with a strong horse and no extra burdens." "They're not burdens," Emma snapped, protective instinct flaring. Henry raised his hands in apology. "Poor choice of words. What I mean is, my ranch is closer. You and the babes could rest up, tend to that wound before continuing on your journey." Emma studied him warily. A woman alone couldn't be too careful, especially in these territories. Yet the twins needed milk, warmth, and shelter, things she couldn't provide in the middle of nowhere. "Why would you help strangers?" she asked. A shadow crossed Henry's face. "Because once no one helped me when I needed it most." He gestured to the babies. "What are their names?" "Joshua and Josephine," Emma replied, glancing down at their tiny faces. "They're only 2 weeks old. My sister. She made me promise to get them to Lordsburg, to our aunt." Henry nodded. "A promise worth keeping, but first you need to survive to keep it." He stood and returned to his horse, retrieving a canteen. "Can you ride?" Emma had grown up on a farm in Missouri before her family decided to seek their fortunes further west. She knew horses well enough. "Yes, but the babies will fashion a sling," Henry said, already removing his bandana. "Used to carry injured lambs this way back when I worked someone else's ranch." Within minutes, he had created a makeshift carrier that allowed Emma to hold both infants securely against her chest, while leaving her hands free for the reins. "It's not elegant," Henry said with a hint of apology, "but it'll get you to shelter before nightfall." Emma watched as he gathered what usable supplies remained from the wreckage: her carpet bag, a few cans of food, a small pouch of coins her brother-in-law had kept hidden. He worked efficiently, respectfully, and with a competence that slowly eased her initial distrust. As the sun began its final descent, Henry helped Emma into the saddle, then collected the bodies of her family members, laying them to rest beneath a stand of cottonwood trees. He said no words but removed his hat as Emma recited the Lord's Prayer, tears streaming unchecked down her face. "I'll send word to the marshal in Lordsburg when we reach my ranch," Henry promised as they set off. "He can arrange for proper burials." Emma nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. The babies, exhausted from crying, had finally fallen asleep against her chest. She focused on their small, warm weight to keep from collapsing into grief. They rode in silence as the desert landscape transformed in the dying light, painted in shades of red and gold. When Emma swayed in the saddle, light-headed from blood loss and shock, Henry reached over to steady her. "Not much further," he assured her. "Just over that ridge." True to his word, they crested the hill to reveal a modest ranch nestled in a protected valley. A small creek ran alongside a sturdy cabin with a corral and barn nearby. It wasn't grand, but it was clearly well maintained. "It's not much," Henry said, echoing her thoughts, "but it's mine." As they approached, a dog's bark announced their arrival. An older man emerged from the barn, squinting in their direction. "Abe," Henry called out, "we've got guests needing help." The man, wiry and weathered with a shock of white hair, hurried forward. "Lord Almighty, what have you found now, Henry?" His eyes widened at the sight of Emma and the babies. "Miss, you look about ready to fall right off that horse." "Bandits hit their wagon train," Henry explained as he dismounted. "This is Miss Emma Montgomery and her sister's twins. The rest didn't make it." Abe's face softened with compassion. "I'm sorry for your troubles, Miss Montgomery. Let's get you inside." Between them, the men helped Emma dismount, Abe exclaiming over the ingenious baby sling. Henry led the way to the cabin, opening the door to reveal a simple but clean interior. A cooking stove radiated welcome warmth, and the smell of stew filled the air. "Abe's my foreman and cook," Henry explained. "Been with me since I bought this place 5 years back." "And keeping him from living on jerky and coffee alone," Abe added, already bustling about, gathering clean linens. Emma sank gratefully onto a wooden chair, her legs trembling with exhaustion. One of the babies, Josephine, began to fuss, tiny fists waving in protest. "They need milk," Emma said, panic rising. "I don't have any, we've got goat's milk," Henry replied. "Had a nanny birth twins of her own last month." "Abe, would that work for human babies?" The older man nodded. "My sister raised her youngest on goat's milk when she couldn't nurse." "I'll water it down some, warm it up." While Abe prepared the milk, Henry fetched clean water and bandages for Emma's wound. She noticed he deliberately kept his distance, giving her space, speaking softly as one might to a skittish colt. "I can tend to your shoulder if you'll allow it," he offered. "Or Abe can help you if you'd prefer." Emma appreciated his understanding of her predicament. "I can manage the wound," she said, "but I would be grateful for help with the babies while I do." Henry approached carefully, holding out his arms. "May I?" With only slight hesitation, Emma transferred Joshua into his waiting hands. The cowboy cradled the infant with surprising tenderness, his large, calloused hands gentle as they supported the baby's head. "Hello there, little man," he murmured, a soft smile transforming his weathered features. "You've had quite the day, haven't you?" Emma watched, astonished as Joshua settled immediately against Henry's chest, tiny fingers curling around one of the cowboys. There was nothing threatening in the man's demeanor, only a genuine gentleness that caught her off guard. While Henry held Joshua, Emma cleaned and bandaged her wound, wincing at the sting of alcohol on raw flesh. By the time she finished, Abe had returned with 2 small bottles filled with diluted goat's milk, rubber nipples attached. "Use these for orphaned lambs," he explained, handing one to Emma for Josephine. "Boiled everything clean first." Emma tested the milk's temperature on her wrist before offering it to the hungry infant, who latched on eagerly. Across from her, Henry mirrored her actions with surprising competence. "You seem experienced with babies," Emma observed. A shadow passed across Henry's face. "Had a little brother once. Helped raise him after our ma passed." The past tense told Emma all she needed to know, and she didn't press further. Instead, she focused on feeding Josephine, marveling at how naturally the tiny girl took to the improvised bottle. After the babies were fed, burped, and changed using soft flannel torn from one of Abe's old shirts, exhaustion hit Emma like a physical blow. Her eyes grew heavy, her body swaying where she sat. "You need rest," Henry said firmly. "You can take my bed." "Oh, I couldn't, I insist," he interrupted. "I'll bunk with Abe in the foreman's quarters. The babies can sleep beside you." Too tired to argue, Emma allowed herself to be led to a small but tidy bedroom at the back of the cabin. Henry quickly changed the bedding, then fashioned a makeshift cradle from a drawer lined with blankets. "It's not fancy," he said apologetically, "but it'll keep them safe for the night." Emma placed the sleeping twins in their improvised bed, marveling at how peaceful they looked despite the day's horrors. When she turned to thank Henry, she found him watching the babies with an unreadable expression. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." He nodded, his gaze meeting hers. "Get some rest, Miss Montgomery. Tomorrow's soon enough to figure out next steps." After he left, Emma sank onto the bed, intending only to rest for a moment before washing her face. Instead, grief and exhaustion claimed her, pulling her down into dreamless sleep even as tears dried on her cheeks. She woke disoriented in the pre-dawn light, momentarily panicking until the events of the previous day rushed back. A quick check confirmed the babies were sleeping soundly in their drawer cradle. Voices murmured outside the bedroom, Henry and Abe discussing the day's ranch work. Emma rose quietly, splashing water on her face from the basin someone had thoughtfully left beside the bed. Her black traveling dress was filthy and torn, but she had nothing else to wear. Opening her salvaged carpetbag, she found a clean collar and cuffs, which would have to do. The men fell silent when she emerged from the bedroom, both rising from the table where they'd been drinking coffee. "Morning, Miss Montgomery," Henry said. "How's the shoulder?" "Sore, but healing," she replied. "The babies, still sleeping. Checked on them about an hour ago when I heard one fussing. Changed the little fellow and he went right back to sleep." Emma blinked in surprise. "You changed a diaper." A slight flush colored Henry's tan cheeks. "Like I said, helped with my brother. It's been a while, but some things you don't forget." Abe placed a plate of eggs and bacon before her. "Eat up, miss. You'll need your strength." As Emma ate, Henry outlined his plan. "I've sent one of my hands to Lordsburg with news of what happened. Marshall should be out to the attack site today. In the meantime, you and the little ones are welcome to stay here until you're well enough to travel." "That's very generous," Emma said, "but I don't want to impose." Henry's blue eyes held hers steadily. "It's no imposition. Ranch is quiet this time of year anyway, just finished the spring branding. Cattle are grazing peacefully. Besides," he added with a small smile, "it's nice having little ones around again." A cry from the bedroom interrupted their conversation. Emma rose, but Henry was already on his feet. "I'll fetch them," he said. "You finish eating." She watched, bemused, as the tall cowboy strode purposefully toward the bedroom, returning moments later with both babies expertly cradled in his arms. "This little lady has quite the set of lungs," he commented, nodding toward Josephine, who was wailing energetically. "Her brother's more the contemplative type, I reckon." Emma couldn't help but smile at his assessment. "Yes, Joe has always been the demanding one. Even before they were born, she kicked more." Henry transferred the twins to her arms, his fingers brushing hers in the exchange. A spark of awareness flickered between them, there and gone so quickly Emma thought she might have imagined it. The next days fell into a rhythm that surprised Emma with its domesticity. Henry worked the ranch during daylight hours, but always returned to help with the babies in the evenings. Abe kept the household running smoothly, preparing bottles and doing laundry with surprising skill. Emma gradually regained her strength, helping where she could while caring for the twins. On the third day, the marshal from Lordsburg arrived with news. He'd found the wagon train massacre site and buried the dead, including Emma's sister and brother-in-law. He'd also brought a letter from Emma's aunt in Lordsburg. "I'm afraid it's not good news, Miss Montgomery," Marshal Davidson said, his weathered face grave beneath his mustache. "Your aunt's taken ill with pneumonia. Doctor says she's in no condition to take in 2 newborns." Emma stared at the letter in her hands, the world tilting beneath her. "But where will we go?" "The twins," I promised clara-eyed. "Your aunt suggests you continue on to San Francisco, where your cousin Mary lives," the marshal continued gently. "Says she might be able to help." San Francisco was over 1,000 miles away, an impossible journey for a woman alone with 2 infants. "I'll give it some thought," Emma said numbly. "Thank you, Marshal." After he left, Emma sat in the rocking chair Henry had brought in from the porch for her, a sleeping baby in each arm, trying desperately to form a plan. Her small savings wouldn't cover a trip to California, even if she could manage it alone. Henry found her there at dusk, tears streaming silently down her face. "Emma," he asked, dropping formality in his concern. "What's happened?" Through halting words, she explained her predicament. Henry listened quietly, his expression thoughtful. "San Francisco's a long way," he said finally. "Too far," Emma agreed. "I don't know what to do. I have some money saved, but not enough for that journey. Perhaps I could find work in Lordsburg until—" "Stay here," Henry said abruptly. Emma stared at him. "What? Stay here," he repeated, more softly this time. "At least until you figure things out. The ranch has plenty of room and—" He hesitated, then admitted, "I've grown fond of the little ones." "I couldn't impose. It's not an imposition," Henry insisted. "Truth is, place hasn't felt this alive in years, and you'd be doing me a favor." "A favor?" Emma echoed skeptically. Henry ran a hand through his hair, looking uncharacteristically vulnerable. "Been thinking I need to hire a housekeeper anyway. Abe's getting on in years, shouldn't be doing all he does. You could earn your keep, save up for whatever you decide." Emma considered the offer. It wasn't ideal, but it would give her time to heal and plan. More importantly, it would keep the twins safe and well cared for. "All right," she agreed. "But only until I save enough to secure our future." Henry's smile warmed his entire face. "Fair enough." As the days turned into weeks, Emma settled into life at the Hayes Ranch. She took over the household duties, freeing Abe to focus on ranch matters. The twins thrived on goat's milk and constant attention from all 3 adults. Emma found herself watching Henry with the babies, marveling at his natural affinity for childcare. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Joshua asleep against Henry's broad chest, Emma voiced a question that had been nagging her. "You're so good with them," she observed. "Why didn't you ever have a family of your own?" Henry was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. When he did, his voice was low, contemplative. Came close once. Was engaged to a gal from back east, Caroline. Her father was a banker who'd invested in some mining operations out this way. We met when she came to visit him. His fingers gently stroked Joshua's downy head. She liked the adventure of the West, but not the reality of it. When her father lost his investments in the panic of '73, she decided a rancher's life wasn't for her after all. "I'm sorry," Emma said softly. Henry shrugged. "Was for the best, likely. She'd have been miserable here, and I'd have been miserable watching her misery." They sat in companionable silence until Josephine began to fuss in Emma's arms. "Someone's hungry," Henry observed with a smile. "I'll fetch her bottle." As he rose to go inside, Emma caught his hand impulsively. "Thank you, Henry, for everything." His fingers tightened briefly around hers. "My pleasure, Emma." The moment lingered between them, waited with unspoken words before Henry gently withdrew his hand and went inside. That night, as Emma prepared for bed, she found herself studying her reflection in the small mirror above the washstand. At 24, she was hardly in her first bloom, but neither was she faded. The New Mexico sun had brought a glow to her fair skin, and weeks of good food had restored the curves grief had diminished. More notably, the haunted look was fading from her green eyes. She thought of Henry, his kindness, his strength, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. Dangerous thoughts for a woman in her position. She was his employee now, dependent on his charity. Moreover, she had the twins to consider. Their welfare had to come first. Emma blew out the lamp and crawled into bed, forcing practical matters back to the forefront of her mind. Tomorrow she would begin making soap, a skill her mother had taught her that might bring in extra money to add to her savings. Summer bloomed across the New Mexico territory, bringing longer days and occasional afternoon thunderstorms that transformed the landscape into brief, startling green. Emma established a small vegetable garden, started selling her homemade soap and preserves in Lordsburg, and watched the twins grow stronger each day. Joshua and Josephine were 4 months old when Henry received a telegram that changed everything. Emma was hanging laundry while the babies napped when he rode in, his expression uncharacteristically grim. "What's wrong?" she asked, immediately concerned. Henry dismounted, removing his hat. "Got news about my brother." Emma knew only the barest details about Ethan Hayes, that he'd left the ranch years ago after a bitter argument, that he'd headed to Colorado to seek his fortune in the silver mines. "Is he?" She couldn't finish the question. "Dead. Mining accident." Henry's voice was flat. "That's not all. Seems he married, had a little girl. Wife died of fever last winter." He looked up, meeting Emma's eyes. "His daughter survived. She's 6 years old, all alone now except for me." Emma's heart constricted. "Oh, Henry, I'm so sorry," he nodded, his jaw tight. "I'm leaving for Silverton tomorrow." "Need to bring her home." "Of course," Emma said. "We'll manage things here until you return." Henry hesitated, then spoke the words that would alter their future. "The thing is, Emma, I don't know the first thing about raising a little girl." His voice caught. "I need help raising her, and the twins are already more than a full-time job." Emma moved closer, laying a gentle hand on his arm. "We'll figure it out together. I'll help you with your niece." Something shifted in Henry's eyes, relief, gratitude, and something warmer that made Emma's pulse quicken. "I can't ask that of you," he said. "You've got enough on your plate with Joshua and Josephine." "You're not asking," Emma replied firmly. "I'm offering." For a moment she thought he might embrace her. Instead, he covered her hand with his own, squeezing gently. "Thank you," he said simply. Henry left at dawn the following day, the journey to Colorado expected to take at least 2 weeks round trip. In his absence, Emma found herself missing him with an intensity that surprised her. The twins seemed to sense it too, fussing more than usual at night. "They miss their Henry," Abe observed one evening as Emma paced the floor with a cranky Josephine. "Can't say I blame them. Place isn't the same without him." Emma couldn't disagree. In just a few months, Henry Hayes had become the cornerstone of their makeshift family. The thought of adding his orphaned niece to their household brought both challenges and a strange sense of rightness. When Henry finally returned, Emma was in the garden harvesting tomatoes, the twins napping on a blanket in the shade of a nearby tree. She heard the wagon before she saw it, straightening up to shield her eyes from the afternoon sun. Henry drove the team at a steady pace, a small figure beside him on the wagon seat. As they drew closer, Emma could make out a child with dark braids, sitting ramrod straight, her little face solemn beneath a too large bonnet. Emma wiped her hands on her apron and moved to greet them. Henry's face, leaner after the journey, broke into a smile of such genuine pleasure at the sight of her that Emma's heart skipped. "Emma," he called, pulling the wagon to a stop. "I'd like you to meet my niece, Hannah Hayes." The little girl regarded Emma with wary brown eyes, Ethan's eyes, Emma guessed, as they were darker than Henry's blue ones. She was small for 6, her calico dress hanging loosely on her thin frame. "Hello, Hannah," Emma said warmly. "I'm very pleased to meet you." The child nodded slightly but didn't speak. Henry threw Emma an apologetic glance. "Hannah's been mighty quiet since we left Silverton," he explained. "It's been a long journey for a little one." "Of course it has," Emma agreed. "You must be tired and hungry, Hannah. Would you like to come inside for some lemonade and cookies? Then perhaps you'd like to meet the babies." At the mention of babies, Hannah's expression shifted from wariness to curiosity. "There are babies here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, twins," Emma replied. "Joshua and Josephine. They're taking their afternoon nap right now, but they should wake up soon." Hannah looked up at her uncle, who nodded encouragingly. "You go on with Miss Emma. I'll see to the horses, then join you." The child climbed down from the wagon with careful dignity. When Emma offered her hand, Hannah hesitated only briefly before taking it. Her small fingers were rough with calluses no 6-year-old should have. As they walked toward the house, Emma felt Henry's gaze following them. When she glanced back, the expression on his face, a mixture of hope and uncertainty, tugged at something deep within her heart. Inside, Hannah perched on the edge of a chair, back straight, hands folded in her lap as she sipped lemonade and nibbled a cookie. Emma recognized the behavior of a child trying desperately to be good, to be invisible, to avoid giving offense. "Your uncle has been very excited about bringing you home," Emma said gently. "He's fixed up a special room just for you." Hannah's eyes widened slightly. "I get my own room?" "Yes, indeed. Would you like to see it?" The little girl nodded, carefully brushing cookie crumbs from her dress before standing. Emma led her to the small room that had once been a storeroom. Henry had spent the days before his departure transforming it, building a child-sized bed, a shelf for books, even a small table and chair by the window. "Uncle Henry made all this?" Hannah asked, touching the carved bedpost with something like awe. "He did," Emma confirmed. "He wanted you to feel welcome." The child's composure cracked, just for a moment. Her lower lip trembled before she pressed it firm again. "Papa said Uncle Henry was good with his hands." A soft cry from the main room signaled the twins' awakening. Hannah's head turned sharply toward the sound. "Would you like to meet them?" Emma asked. For the first time, a genuine smile lit the child's face. "Yes, please." Joshua and Josephine, freshly awakened and changed, regarded the newcomer with bright-eyed interest from their blanket on the floor. Hannah knelt beside them, her movements cautious but eager. "They're so small," she whispered. "They're 4 months old now," Emma explained. "Would you like to hold one?" Hannah nodded solemnly. Emma showed her how to sit with a pillow on her lap, then carefully placed Josephine in the child's arms. "Support her head, yes, just like that," Emma instructed. "You're a natural, Hannah." The little girl beamed with pride. When Henry entered a few minutes later, he stopped short at the doorway, taking in the scene before him. Emma, seated on the floor beside Hannah, who was talking softly to Josephine while Joshua batted at a wooden rattle nearby. Something in his expression made Emma's breath catch. Before she could analyze it, Abe burst through the door with his usual energy. "Well, look ye here. Must be Miss Hannah." The old man approached with a friendly grin. "I'm Abe, the finest cook in the territory, according to your uncle, though he might be biased since I'm the only cook he's got." Hannah giggled despite herself, the sound bright and unexpected in the quiet room. "Abe makes the best apple pie you've ever tasted," Henry told his niece, finding his voice. "And he promised to make one tonight to celebrate your arrival." "With cinnamon?" Hannah asked hopefully. "More cinnamon than you've ever seen in one place," Abe assured her with a wink. That evening, as they sat around the table enjoying Abe's promised pie, Emma watched Hannah gradually relax, responding to Abe's gentle teasing and her uncle's quiet attention. The child was still reserved, still watchful, but the brittle quality had softened. After Hannah was tucked into her new bed, Emma joined Henry on the porch. The night was cool, stars scattered like diamond dust across the black velvet sky. "How was the journey?" she asked. Henry sighed, leaning against the porch rail. "Hard. Ethan's gone was difficult enough to accept, but seeing where and how Hannah was living." He shook his head. The woman looking after her was doing her best, but she had 6 children of her own. Hannah was sleeping on the floor, wearing clothes 2 sizes too big. Emma's heart ached for the little girl. "She's here now. She'll be all right." "Thanks to you," Henry said, turning to face her. "I meant what I said before I left, Emma. I don't know the first thing about raising a little girl. I need help." In the soft glow of the lantern light, Emma studied the face that had become so dear to her. The steadiness in those blue eyes, the strength in his features, the genuine concern for his niece, all of it moved her in ways she'd been trying to deny for months. "Then I'll raise her too," she whispered, the words slipping out before she could consider their implications. Something flared in Henry's eyes, hope, longing, relief, all mingled together. Emma, a cry from inside, interrupted whatever he'd been about to say. The twins were awake again, their timing impeccable. "I should," Emma gestured toward the house. Henry nodded, but as she turned to go, he caught her hand. "We'll finish this conversation tomorrow." His touch lingered, warm and promising, as Emma nodded and withdrew to tend to the babies. The following morning brought a flurry of activity as they all adjusted to Hannah's presence. The little girl shadowed Henry as he did his morning chores, watching solemnly as he fed the chickens and milked the goats. After breakfast, she asked shyly if she could help Emma with the twins. "I used to help Mrs. Collins with her baby," she explained. "I'm very careful." Emma's heart warmed at the child's earnestness. "I would appreciate the help very much, Hannah. Perhaps you could sing to Josephine while I change Joshua. She loves music." Hannah's face lit up. "I know lots of songs." By midday, the child was proving herself to be a capable helper indeed, fetching diapers, entertaining the babies with simple games, even assisting Abe in the kitchen. Her solemn demeanor occasionally gave way to flashes of childhood joy, particularly when Henry returned from the pastures and swung her up onto his shoulders. "You're good with her," Emma observed that evening as they sat on the porch, the household finally quiet. She adores you already. Henry rubbed the back of his neck, a gesture Emma had come to recognize as a sign of his discomfort with praise. I'm fumbling through. It's you she watches, trying to imitate how you speak, how you move. She's a remarkable child, Emma said. So resilient. Like someone else I know, Henry replied, his gaze warm on her face. Emma, about what you said last night, I meant it, she interrupted, suddenly afraid he might offer her an escape from words spoken in an emotional moment. I want to help raise Hannah and the twins. They're thriving here. I've been thinking that perhaps Lordsburg isn't the right place for them after all. Hope kindled in Henry's eyes. Are you saying you'd stay? Permanently? Emma's heart raced. This was the moment to be honest with him and with herself. The truth is, Henry, I can't imagine taking the twins away from you. You've become as much a father to them as I have a mother. And Hannah's become attached to you, Henry added. To all of you. We've become a family, Emma said softly. An unusual one, perhaps, but a family nonetheless. Henry moved closer, taking both her hands in his. I've been wanting to ask you something for months now, but the timing never seemed right. Emma's pulse quickened. Ask me now. I'm not a wealthy man, he began. This ranch is modest, the work is hard, and the rewards aren't always visible. But it's a good life, Emma. An honest one. And it's been immeasurably better since you and the twins came into it. His hands tightened around hers. I'm asking if you'd consider making this arrangement permanent, if you'd consider becoming my wife. Though she'd sensed where the conversation was heading, the actual words still stole Emma's breath away. Henry, I know it's sudden, he continued quickly. And if you need time to think about it, I understand. But I love those babies like they were my own. I think I'm halfway to loving Hannah the same way. And you, Emma. His voice dropped to a near whisper. I believe I've been falling in love with you since the day you threatened to shoot me. A laugh bubbled up from Emma's chest, mingling with the tears that had sprung to her eyes. That's not the most romantic beginning to a love story. Maybe not, Henry agreed, a smile tugging at his lips, but it's our beginning, and I'm hoping it's nowhere near our ending. Emma looked up at the man who had rescued her from despair, who had opened his home and his heart to her and 2 orphaned infants, who now wanted to create a real family from their makeshift one. Yes, she said simply. Yes, I'll marry you, Henry. His face transformed with joy. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned forward and kissed her. It was a gentle kiss, reverent almost, but it contained a promise of deeper passion to come. Emma's hands moved to his shoulders, steadying herself against the wave of emotion that threatened to overwhelm her. When they parted, Henry rested his forehead against hers. I was so afraid you'd say no. How could I? Emma asked softly. You've given me everything I never knew I wanted. A small sound from the doorway made them both turn. Hannah stood in her nightgown, eyes wide as she took in their embrace. Hannah, Henry said gently. What are you doing up, sweetheart? I had a bad dream, the child replied, her voice small. Are you and Miss Emma getting married? Emma exchanged a glance with Henry, who nodded encouragingly. Yes, Hannah, she answered. Your uncle has asked me to be his wife, and I've said yes. How would you feel about that? The little girl considered this with serious concentration. Would you be my aunt then? And would Joshua and Josephine be my cousins? Yes to both questions, Henry replied. We'd all be one family. Hannah's face broke into the most radiant smile they'd yet seen from her. I'd like that very much, she declared, then added with childish practicality. Does this mean I can call you Aunt Emma now? Emma opened her arms, and Hannah ran into them without hesitation. You can call me whatever makes you happy, sweetheart. Over the child's head, Emma's eyes met Henry's. The love she saw there matched the fullness in her own heart, a promise of the life they would build together. They were married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the ranch. Marshal Davidson came from Lordsburg to witness, bringing his wife who had taken an interest in Emma's situation. Abe proudly gave the bride away, while Hannah stood at her side, holding a small bouquet of wildflowers identical to Emma's own. The twins, dressed in their finest gowns, were passed between Abe and Mrs. Davidson during the brief service. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the circuit preacher declared. "Mr. Hayes, you may kiss your bride." Henry's kiss was more confident this time, but no less tender. As they turned to face their small gathering of well-wishers, Emma felt a sense of completion she had never expected to find after the tragedy that had brought her to this place. Later, as they danced under the stars to the music of a fiddle played by one of Henry's ranch hands, her new husband pulled her close. "Happy," he murmured against her hair. "Completely," Emma replied, "though I still can't believe how we got here. If someone had told me 6 months ago that I'd be a married mother of 3 living on a ranch in New Mexico territory—" "3," Henry interrupted, pulling back to look at her. Emma smiled up at him. "Hannah called me Mama for the first time this morning. She asked if it was all right since I was going to be her mother now." Henry's eyes grew suspiciously bright. "What did you tell her?" "I told her nothing would make me prouder than to be her mother," Emma replied. "And I meant it, Henry. She's ours now as much as the twins are." He drew her back into his embrace, his voice rough with emotion. "I don't know what I did to deserve this second chance at happiness, but I promise you, Emma Hayes, I'll spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret giving it to me." "I know you will," she whispered. "That's why I love you." As the years passed, the Hayes family flourished along with their ranch. Hannah blossomed into a confident young girl, excelling at her studies and developing a remarkable talent for working with horses. Joshua and Josephine grew from babies to toddlers to children, their personalities distinct but complementary. Joshua thoughtful and methodical, Josephine bold and adventurous. On their 2nd anniversary, Emma gave Henry news that brought tears to his eyes. They were expecting a child of their own. The following summer, their son Ethan Abraham Hayes was born, named for Henry's brother and their loyal friend Abe, who wept unashamedly when he learned of the honor. The years brought changes to their corner of New Mexico territory. The railroad came through, bringing new settlers and opportunities. Lordsburg grew from a dusty outpost to a proper town. The Hayes Ranch expanded, prospering under Henry's careful management and Emma's shrewd business sense. They would go on to have 2 more children, a daughter, Clara, named for Emma's sister, and another son, William. Their home, once a simple cabin, grew to accommodate their expanding family, but it never lost the warmth and welcome that had first drawn Emma to it. Sometimes, on quiet evenings when the children were asleep, Emma and Henry would sit on the porch where he had first proposed, marveling at the journey that had brought them together. "You ever think about how different our lives might have been?" Emma asked on one such night, her head resting against Henry's shoulder. "If the bandits hadn't attacked the wagon train, if you hadn't heard the shots." "I try not to dwell on it," Henry admitted, his arm tightening around her. "Seems disrespectful to your loss. But I can't help being grateful that you came into my life, even if the circumstances were tragic." Emma nodded, understanding completely. "I think Clara would be happy, knowing her children are loved, that they have a father who adores them. And a mother who'd move heaven and earth for them," Henry added, pressing a kiss to her temple. From inside came the faint sound of their youngest son crying. Emma made to rise, but Henry stopped her. "I'll go," he said. "You rest." She watched him walk away. This man who had once confessed, He didn't know how to raise children, but had become the finest father she could imagine. The cowboy who had needed help raising his orphan charges, not realizing he would end up raising her spirits, her hopes, and her capacity for love in return. In the distance, a coyote called to its mate, the sound lonesome yet beautiful in the vast New Mexico night. Emma smiled, feeling anything but alone. She was exactly where she was meant to be, home in every sense of the word.